Good morning, students. Today we are going to learn about measurement of time. In the previous classes, we learned about speed and distance. Now, how to measure time. We carry out all activities in our daily life based on a schedule in which each event takes place at a particular instant and for a specific duration. Duration means time. Hence, the knowledge of time is important. It is very important and essential for all of us. Time can be defined as measurable quantity during which any event occurs. Initially, measurement of time was done with the change of season, change of day and night, observing stars and so on. Here are some of the instruments used to measure time from the ancient time to the present. First is sundial. Look at the picture. This is a picture of sundial. One of the most ancient instruments for measuring time is sundial. Sundial measures time based on the position and length of the shadow. Position and length of the shadow cast by the sun, means done by sun. As the time passes, the shadow of the blade on the dial changes with the changing position of the sun. Look at this picture. This is another picture of sundial. Here you can see the numbers also, 1 to 12, and the position of shadow. This is Jantar Mantar at Delhi picture. This is also a sundial. It is present in Delhi, and there is another Jantar Mantar in Jaipur, Rajasthan also. This works on the position of the shadow or cast by the sun. This is sand clock. Sand clock. A sand is filled in a glass bulb, and here the duration is fixed. Before this, learn about water clock first. This is a picture of water clock. Here is a two reservoir. One is two utensils. One is conical shape and other is reservoir. And there is a wheel. There is a rod. It looks like very complex, but it is not so complex. Though the water clock sounds like a complex instrument, it is not so complex. Water clock was a method used to measure time in ancient Egypt. In a water clock, two vessels are kept at different level, one above the other, and the rate of the dipping of water from the upper vessel to the lower vessel is observed to measure the time interval. The sloping sides of the upper vessel makes the rate of the dripping of water constant from the bottom hole of the conical vessel. The marking on the upper vessel indicated the passage of time. Means there is a on the whole, this is a water clock based on the dripping of the water drops, and wheel moves with the help of this reservoir water that is floating. The rod is floating on the second utensil. Third one is sand clock. This is sand clock. A sand clock is also known as hourglass, which was another device for the measuring time in the ancient era. It is based on the flow of sand from one glass bulb to the other glass bulb. The time taken for the sand to flow from one bulb to another indicates a fixed interval of time. Maybe it is in hour, maybe it is in minutes, maybe it is in seconds. It is a fixed interval of time. Look at the picture. This is a picture of sand clock. It is more clear. Glass bulb and sand is filled in it. Okay. Now come to, and this is a picture of water clock. It is a simple instrument, not very complex. First bucket is filled with water and there is a small hole in the first bucket, and second bucket is empty. And the time interval is fixed. First time you just measure and observe the time, and from second time it will be become empty. First bucket will become empty at the dash 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 interval. Now come to pendulum. There was one disadvantage with these ancient time measuring devices such as sundial, sand clock and water clock, that they could not measure small intervals of time such as minutes and seconds. So later in the 17th century, with the development of pendulum clocks, it became possible to measure the minutes and seconds. And after that, we also developed microseconds and nanoseconds, and different types of watches, clocks, all developed, and we can measure very accurately also, and small time also, intervals. Now come to simple pendulum. This is a simple pendulum. Look at the picture. Simple gravity pendulums. A simple pendulum is a small metal ball suspended with a long massless string. String means dhaga. Massless means no weight. From a rigid support. When it is pulled to one side and released, then it freely oscillates to and fro. When we pulled one side, this metal ball is also called bob. This ball is pulled to one side and then released. It freely oscillates to and fro. To and fro means idhar udhar. The principle of the simple pendulum is that for a given length of a pendulum makes all oscillation in exactly the same time. The important terms related to the simple pendulum and its oscillation are effective length, the distance between the point of suspension, point of attachment, and center of gravity of the suspended mass is called the effective length of the simple pendulum. Main is oscillation. The one complete to and fro motion completed by the pendulum, or you can say completed by the bob, is called an oscillation. In simple word, motion of pendulum from one extreme position to the other extreme position and back is called one oscillation. In this case, you can see, first it goes left, then right, again comes back and goes to the extreme position. Time period. Time period means one complete oscillation. The time taken by simple pendulum to complete one to and fro oscillation is called time period of the pendulum. And last one is amplitude. Amplitude is an angle. Look at this amplitude. The maximum displacement between the mean position and the extreme position of the pendulum bob is called amplitude. Dark blue bob is the mean position, and light blue ball or bob, you can say, is the extreme position. And the angle between them, displacement means angle between them, is called the amplitude. Here is some picture. Rigid support, long thread, and bob, metal ball. Simple pendulum. Look at the picture. And this is one oscillation. C to A to B, B to A, and A to C is called one to and fro or one oscillation. This is a pendulum clock worked by the pendulum. Now come to activity. To determine time period of a simple pendulum. What is time period? The time of one complete oscillation. You should know. You will need one clamp stand, massless string, metal bob, and stopwatch. Mean one stopwatch. Fix one end of the string to pendulum bob. Suspend the other end from a stand to support, making a pendulum of length 1 meter. Means the string should be 1 meter long. Then displace the metal bob to one side, to take at the extreme position. One side through a small angle and release, और इसको छोड़ दो. The bob starts oscillating to and fro. Note down the time taken to complete 20 oscillations. Means 20 to and fro, 20 times, with the help of a stopwatch. You can find a stopwatch in your mobile phone also nowadays. The time period of oscillations can be determined by dividing the time taken by 20. 20 times you count, and after that divide it by 20, so that you can get the time of one oscillation. Make 5 repetitions following the same step. Record your observation in the table given below. Every time divide by 20, count 20 oscillations and record, note down in this chart. Same activity to determine the time period of a pendulum. A stopwatch, you can see. We can determine the time period, same activity, just like above one. We can determine the time period of a simple pendulum by performing an activity. Set up a simple pendulum with a thread of length nearly 1 meter, carrying a bob at the lower end. Tie at the upper end and from a rigid support like a iron stand. Switch off the nearby fan so that they may not interfere with the oscillations of pendulum. we will need a stopwatch to measure the time period. To set the pendulum in motion, hold a bob gently and move it slightly to one side, means one right side or left side, extreme position. Make sure that thread attached to bob remains taut when it displaces it. Now release the bob from its displaced position gently, means release, छोड़ देना है. Do not push the bob while releasing it. Start the stopwatch and count 20 oscillations, means 20 to and fro, from C to A to B, B to A to C, and made by the pendulum bob. Measure the time which pendulum takes to complete 20 oscillations and divide this time by 20. So it will give you the time taken by the pendulum for making one oscillation. This is the time period of the pendulum. Every time period means making one oscillation. Time taken by one oscillation. Suppose the time taken for 20 oscillations of the pendulum measured is 48. Means time taken 48 seconds to complete 20 oscillations. So time period means one oscillation. Time period of one oscillation. So you will divide 48 divided by 20 is equal to 2.4 seconds. That is the time period, or time period is 2.4 seconds, or you can say time taken to complete one oscillation is 2.4 seconds. One oscillation is equal to time taken. So that's all for today. Thank you.